Good afternoon. It is September the 19th. And I was just doing my rounds in the backyard. And all of a sudden I thought, well, let me just make a quick video where I could explain a few things about my persimmons, which are getting ready to ripen. Some of them are ripening, which I'll show in a little bit. And one of the trees I observed, which I'll show you next, I'm going to show it to you. It's giving me a little bit of a problem, presenting a problem to me. And I'm going to discuss how I'm going to address that problem in a second. It's just there are so many persimmons on it. It's just folding over. The tree's going to collapse. I've got it tied. I've had it tied for a couple of years. I'm going to have to do some radical pruning to it. It will break my heart to do it, but I have to do that. So I was just going to talk about that. We need to make these choices sometimes, and they're difficult. They're not always easy. Gardening isn't. Sometimes we really have to make the hard choices, which we would prefer not to, but we must. And so I'm going to discuss that quickly. But this is a Rosianca tree that I'm very, very fond of. And it too is, it's, you might say, a bit overburdened with persimmons. It's a huge crop. But they're delicious. And I'm going to do some pruning on this tree after I pick the crop. They're beginning to ripen now. Again, it's September the 19th. And this is a magnificent, a magnificent variety. I've spoken about this once or twice, not much, not as much as my Nikita's Gift or my Seijo. But this Rosiancan is also a hybrid, one of the rare hybrids, a mixture, a cross between Japanese and American. The thing that sets this apart from a lot of other persimmons varieties is not only its cold hardiness, which in New Jersey, like where I live in 7A, is a very, very, very important factor to consider, because we get down to 0 degrees, and you need to have a persimmons that can handle that. And this one can, because it's a hybrid, and the American persimmons can go down far below 0. The Japanese usually about 10 above, okay? Some of them a little less. Seijo's the best, and they say it can go down to, they say, 10 below 0, which is incredible. And I've never lost a branch in all the years that I've had my Seijo. I highly recommend Seijo whenever I talk about persimmons. And so put one in your backyard. Just trust me, do it. If you do it, I promise you, you will thank me for it 1,000 times over in the future. Okay, now let's get back to this reality here. The thing that sets this one apart, mostly, believe it or not, truly, it is the most exquisite tasting persimmons that I've ever tasted before. And that's saying so much, because I love Seijo. It's so good. We're splitting hairs here. And I love Nikita's Gift. But the thing about Rosianca, and I don't know if other gardeners have observed this. I observe it all the time. So I know it's what I'm telling you is accurate. But there's this explosion of delicious flavor when you bite into it. But the astringency is unavoidable. And it's unpreventable. You can take them in the house and you can freeze them, which usually gets rid of all of the astringency, not these. You can let them get extra ripe. You can sit there and just monitor them 24 hours a day, and say, oh, here it is. This is perfection. I can pick it now. It's perfectly ripe. And usually that's good. And that will prevent astringency in the astringent type persimmons, but not Rosianca. There's a little bit of residual bitterness, okay? Astringency. And it's just unavoidable, and it's unpreventable. And I've tried. Now, is it a lot? No. Is it a huge factor? I don't think so. Does it make it not worth growing in your yard? Absolutely not. Is the explosive, exquisite flavor that you get when you bite into one of these wonderful persimmons, is it worth that little bit of astringency which follows? And it takes about 5 seconds or maybe even 8 seconds before you can feel it. It's just a little bit. Is it worth it? Is that explosive, tremendously delicious, wonderful flavor? Is it? Yes. Yes, it's worth it. It's worth it. Trust me, it's worth it. I look forward to these every year and I devour them. All of them. I love them. They're great. And that little bit of astringency, so what? Again, you just can't get rid of it. Now let me put you on pause and we'll go over and take a look at this other persimmons tree that I just mentioned and the problem I'm having with it. By the way, for you figsters out there, September 19th, I'm going to post this video. I think I'm going to try and post it tonight. But I've got plenty of figs still. Wonderful, wonderful, delicious tasting figs. This I talked about this before. This is a really good slate variant to the Mount Etna types. And it's Sicilian dark. And it is a producer. It really cranks the figs out constantly. And it has a long season, a little bit longer than some of the other Mount Etna types. And they're a very, very flavorful variety. But I talked about this in my last video, and I recommended Malta Black because they're about the same in taste. They taste a little differently, just slightly different, but both about equal in flavor. And if you were going to grade them, and let me take a bite out of this. Okay, beautiful, beautiful. Wow. So good, so good. Let's talk about the persimmons tree that I mentioned. And here it is. This is none other than Nikita's gift. And wow, look at this crop of persimmons, would you please? This is not unusual. It does this every year. You will notice in my other videos. But there are just so many persimmons on this tree. And it's folding over. I've got it tied up so they don't break, the branches don't break. I've got a big heavy rebarb here. And I've got it all tied, which I recommend that you learn how to tie your figs and your trees, because you need to many times. Sometimes you're lucky enough that you don't. Many times you need to, especially with figs when they're young. Later on, not so much. Persimmons, if you're lucky, like with this, it depends on the variety too. Like if you look at this monster, look at it. It's 30 foot tall. And it's my Sajo, one of my Sajo trees. And isn't it magnificent? It also has a lot of fruit. It's not as heavily laden with fruit this year as is my Nikita's gift. But Nikita's gift bears heavily every single year. And Sajo, okay, bears very heavily one year. You might say it's kind of biannual in that sense. And the second year, it's a lighter crop. Now this is, you would think light, there's so many, I don't know what I'll do with them all. There are so many of them anyway. But this is the light year. You will notice in my video last year that it was more heavily laden with fruit. But there's so many here that, I mean, it gets to the point where it's superfluous, really. So let's get back to this problem I'm having. Next year, or even this year, I should say, really, when this crop has finished yielding, I am going to dramatically prune this tree back. There's nothing else I can do with it. Hey, there's a really nice fig, right? I'm gonna get that one as soon as I'm finished with the video. But there's nothing I can do any longer but to prune this tree severely. Persimmons very often, again, especially depending on the variety, you can almost never have to prune them. A lot of my American persimmons, I never hardly touch them. And it's the same with my Seijo, which is a purely Japanese persimmons. And one of the most wonderful persimmons. And I give it a little bit of a higher grade than the Rosianca because of the fact that there's no astringency. There's no astringency. Once it's ripe and you eat it, it's just good. And there's no astringency. And the same with this Nikita's Gift. It's the flavor of the Rosianca is we're splitting hairs, is a little bit, it's different. It's a little bit more exquisite, just a little tiny bit. Please don't get the wrong idea, because these are so good. I mean, I've grown persimmons for 40 years. I'm telling you, and I used to, as a little boy, I used to eat persimmons all the time. They were American varieties. But I've never tasted anything that rivals Seijo and Nikita's Gift, except Rosianca, but again, there's that astringency. So grow all three if you have room, like I am doing. I have two of these. I've got another one over there. If you can see it over next to the barn, I don't know from this distance, maybe I'll go over to it and show it to you. And that's why that one there I'm not having as much trouble. I won't have to prune it maybe at all, or not as severely. That's why I won't mind pruning this one pretty hard, because I need to do it. And it won't yield as much next year, but it's just something. Look at it. Just look at this tree. I need to do it. I really need to do this, and I don't want to. But I'm trying to make this video for the sole purpose of expressing my anxiety, but my practicality, my practical approach to understanding and fully accepting that this is something that absolutely needs to be done. So don't hesitate out there. When you have to take drastic action, take it. You're saving a tree, and the fruit will come back. I won't cut all of the branches. There will still be plenty of fruit next year for me to eat, more than I can eat. And I have another tree anyway, which I'm going to maybe right now take you over to. So let me put you on pause here. You want to see the other Nikita's Gift. And now we're approaching the other Nikita's Gift. I promised to show you. And you'll see my other persimmons trees. Those are American varieties, several different modifications of American persimmons, chosen by professionals in the past by selection. And that's how they get American persimmons to be different. I've explained this in other videos, and we'll talk about it another time. I don't want to make this video too lengthy. But look at that. That tree there is very old. And I planted it many, at least, I don't know. I just forget, 30 years ago. And it's 40 foot tall at least. You can see my shed. And it's full of fruit, which we'll look at that in a second. But here's the Nikita. And this Nikita is more balanced. I do have it tied for the last couple of years to keep it straight, and it's working real nicely this time. It's not as heavily laden with fruit as the other, but it's got plenty, a multitude of persimmons on it, as you can see, as you can well see, all that's necessary and more. And so I'm very happy with this tree, and I won't have to prune it severely like the other. The other's just a monster, you know. They're just so healthy. And I do have a method. I have methods of feeding them. A lot of people say you don't have to feed persimmons. Well, you really don't. They will produce. You don't have to feed them much. A little shot in the spring is advisable, early spring, of 3-month fertilizer, something that will slowly dissolve and feed the nutrients to the tree. But you don't have to, because persimmons will produce, and they're produced fairly abundantly without. But if you want to get a larger crop, a crop of larger fruit, and maybe a crop a little higher in quality and more numerous, and less of them will drop off in the spring because there's so many, that the tree can't handle it, so it just drops them, which this tree did not do. I guess what I'm saying is, you can fertilize them, but beware and be cautious. Err on the side of caution. I think I over-fertilized the other tree, but really I've been having that problem for the last couple of years, so I can't really pinpoint and say that that's the purpose, that's the problem. You can't always be the person who knows exactly what's happening in your orchard. We're just not that fortunate. There's a lot of unknown variables. You just got to keep thinking and trying to improve yourself. And over the years, that's what I've tried to do. I'm happy. I'm very, 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 very happy with all of my fruit trees. I try to maintain a balance. I guess that's what I'm trying to explain to you. You can fertilize them, but be careful. And be careful what you fertilize them with. Okay? Because certain things are just, perhaps just, it provides them with too many nutrients. A lot of trees that I see don't have many persimmons. They don't have a lot of fruit. And maybe those people, maybe they should just give them a little bit of fertilizer, or some. You just have to, every day and every year, examine your orchard and try to think, like, what do I need to do to tweak this out? What do I need to improve it? More fertilizer, less, none, that sort of thing. Aren't these trees beautiful though? Look at the size of this tree. Look at it. Look at that. It's huge. This tree and I are old companions. We're friends. I sit under this tree a lot and contemplate the world and my life. I reflect back to when it was younger, and so was I. I hope to spend some more years together, and I'm pretty confident that we will. This tree is producing fruit too. That's actually a ripe persimmons. I'll take a bite out of it. Perfectly ripe. They're starting to drop. You can see. That's so good. You see, what sets these trees apart, these American persimmons from the Japanese type, is the Japanese won't fall like this. They won't fall to the ground when they're ripe. The wonderful thing about, one of the good things about the American persimmon, is another tree, another variety, is when they fall, when they ripen, they fall. And all you need to do is go out every day and pick them. They're perfectly ripe, and they're non-astringent when they're perfectly ripe. That's just delicious, sweet and delicious. Whereas with the Japanese, and even the Nikita's Gift and the Rosianka, you got to sometimes, unfortunately, you got to get up on a ladder to pick them if they're higher than you are. But it's okay. It's all worth it. It's all worth it. Hey, they're valuable, valuable, precious, rare fruits. And I love each and every one of them. And so do the people that I give them away to, and relatives and so on and so forth, friends. Look at this, the Pawpaw. I've been away for a couple weeks. I went on vacation with Debbie. And now that I'm back, I see that I got a little work to do here. I got to pick up some of these Pawpaw. There's still many, 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 many Pawpaw that aren't ripe yet. So I'm not worrying about that. But apparently some have fallen off the trees with all of the windstorms we've had and the rain in the past last week. There's plenty. Uh-oh. Oh, come here. Hey, you little rascal. Come on over here. Here's my friend. One of my greatest friends in life. Come here. What you doing? Hey. Hey, you. Hey, you. Oh, I love you so much. You don't know that. Oh, who's your... I'm making a video of...
Wow, look at all the persimmons.
I know. I was just telling
Starting already.
my viewers that, wow.
I can't believe it.
It started already.
Wait,
We got a lot of ripe persimmons on the ground here. And then look at the pawpaw. Look how many pawpaw. So with that, thank you for visiting. I always, as I've said many times, enjoy your visits. I hope you learned something from this video. Don't be afraid to tie your trees up. Don't be afraid to train them when they're young. I train them all the time, constantly. And when they get older too, if it becomes necessary. Okay? And then you can have an orchard like this too. It takes work. It takes concentration. It takes focus. It takes time. Years and years. That's a male tree that helps to pollinate these American persimmons. So there's no fruit on that. It's just flowers in the spring. I made a video about how to distinguish the male flowers from the female flowers, but you want to have a pollinator. I have another pollinator over there. This is a fruiting tree here, of course, but right past it is another beautiful specimen of a male tree. Let me show you. And there won't be a persimmons on it because it's a male tree. It makes thousands and thousands of flowers in the spring, and it helps to pollinate the female trees. Okay? Simple as that. Birds and the bees. What can I tell you? All right. Having fun here. So, what a beautiful evening. Wow. September 19th. Fall will soon arrive. I'm looking across the field. Do you see him, Deb? Oh, are you there? Still there?
Oh, yeah.
See all the deer back there?
Oh, yeah, look at that.
Oh, look what they did. Come look at this over here. They were here in the yard last night, probably eating persimmons. Look at all these deer tracks everywhere.
Wow.
You know what deer tracks are? You know what they look like? I've shown you before. See them?
Yeah, look at that.
Look, they trampled everything. I mean, they look.
Oh, maybe they're coming from...
They trampled the whole field.
Yeah.
Look at this.
They must have discovered the persimmons that are on the ground.
Yeah, oh, you better know it.
Yeah.
They're not dumb.
Yeah, because we usually don't have them laying on the ground.
They probably like them more than we do.
We're going to have to get the... What you got there? What are you
Okay.
looking for?
Good day.